Okay, so every day things are changing now, I think. Slowly we are starting to get back out there to, putting the pieces back together, really, of the world from where we were all paused. And it is a strange time, I think, this weird transitional time. It's kind of, whereas before felt like we were just paused, yeah, and we just had to like stay in place for a period of time. And although at the beginning that was a bit alarming and a bit scary, and there was lots of fear around why we had to stay in place and whether we were safe or not and what the heck was going on outside and how big of a threat this was, once we kind of dealt with that big thing, we could then be more relaxed and restful because we weren't expected to necessarily do anything. We could just shelter in place and chill and look after ourselves and our loved ones. And so that became quite comfortable and quite safe and almost easy in a way. We've all had our individual challenges within that experience. Maybe we've had health fears within that experience. Maybe we've had injuries that we didn't know what to do with and then couldn't get help with, and we've had to put up with stuff. Maybe there were things that we ran out of that we couldn't replace, and then we had to kind of make do, and maybe that was like really awkward for us, depending on what those things were and how important and necessary they were to our lives. Maybe our kettle broke or our cooker broke, or all of that kind of stuff. We had to just put up with, to suck it up for the greater good. But it was a comforting place as well, because there was a lot of time, and if we weren't homeschooling and we weren't working from home, then we had this expanse of space within which to find ourselves, to reconnect with ourselves, and to rebirth ourselves so that we could be different afterwards, so that we could learn from it. And then now it's like we're moving into this new phase where we're trying to slowly get things back to normal, and so the world is going to start opening up again individually as countries, as towns, bit by bit. So we can't necessarily travel out of our country. No, we certainly can't. We can't even maybe travel out of our town, and maybe we're not even allowed to go more than 1 kilometre away from where we live, but we are allowed to leave our homes. And then as we're allowed to leave our homes, some of the businesses are opening again, with safe practices, and some of the services that we used before are now kind of like coming back online again. And so like bit by bit they are experimenting with, and I think experimenting is a really key word here, because it's not necessarily going to be okay, it's not necessarily safe to, I don't know, for example, go to a local cafe and sit outside and have breakfast. That's being offered to us, but it's not necessarily safe. They don't know. There's always a danger attached to these things, because we don't know, if best practices are being followed in the kitchen, for example. We don't know the different interactions that the people that work in that space have had. We don't even know about the other people that may frequent that place, may come and visit it and sit near us, like whether they are well or not. And we don't even know whether this is something we should be worrying about or not, because, you know, maybe it's all propaganda and there's not so much to fear as we were previously told, and perhaps it's no more dangerous than sitting next to someone who has a cold or the flu. You know, and some of us may be susceptible to that and catch it, and some of us may not. And maybe we catch a tiny little bit and not a big bit, or maybe we get the whole thing, or maybe the person sitting next to us only has a mild dose, but we get a major dose. I mean, you know, that we don't know. And it's not really something that we worried about so much before. Obviously, we don't want to sit next to someone with a cold or the flu if we can help it, but if we were sitting somewhere and someone who was sick came in and sat near us or next to us, we wouldn't necessarily have felt like we had to move. We would have just been a bit, I don't know, a bit worried or a bit annoyed or whatever. But I think now it's scaled up. So maybe now it will be a bit like after the terror attacks, when suddenly we were all afraid of backpacks, and so, you know, if there was a backpack left in a shop on the floor or on a train carriage, we would freak out and have to leave or have to get off or have to go and tell somebody. And, you know, that kind of like fear travelled with us for a very long time afterwards. And, you know, maybe some of us even still have that fear today. So these things don't go away. So things are changing and we're allowed outside, and shops are opening and people are going out, and there's a really big divide out there about how people are feeling and how people are acting. So some people are like, yay, I can go outside, and they're rushing out there and they are not wearing, you know, a mask or anything, and they're walking past other people that they know and they're stopping to speak to them, and maybe they're even touching them on the arm or something by way of saying hello, and they're definitely not 2 meters apart, and they don't seem to be that bothered. Yeah, it's like they're not living in fear. They feel quite comfortable and quite safe and quite like, phew, glad that's all over. Got a bit boring in the end, didn't it? And what a big, like, you know, palaver that whole thing was. But now we can go back to normal and we're all good, we're all safe. Yeah, and they're kind of like, they feel confident and comfortable, and they trust that their bodies will keep them safe. And then you have other people who are going out and they're, you know, they've got the mask and they've got the gloves, and some of them have even got like kind of like face shields as well. So, you know, like a plastic shield in front of their face, or the goggles on or whatever. And they're really fearful, and or maybe they're just being really sensible. And they're not walking near other people, and they're changing direction if people come near them, and they're only going out to do like vital things. And I don't think one way is right and one way is wrong, or one way is wrong and one way is right. I don't know how I feel or where I stand on this matter. I just know that I feel incredibly confused. That I, before this whole thing even began, I thought it was hysteria and media frenzy and spin, and everything was just all about fear. And I didn't buy into it until suddenly we were all in quarantine, just like that. And that freaked me out completely, because like I didn't even know such a thing could happen. And I didn't see it coming, and I didn't know it was that bad, so I didn't know that there was cause for that much of a intense, rigid reaction. And then it's like, we can't go out, and there are police everywhere, and there's the military everywhere, and, you know, if you do try and go out, you get stopped and questioned, and it's quite threatening because they've all got guns, and, you know, they're not amused. And so we kind of all got tutored in how to feel, I guess, brainwashed into thinking, yikes, this is really serious, and shit, we could all die, and that worry and fear and paranoia and that feeling like, oh my god, I'm not ready to die yet, I haven't lived my life yet, I haven't done everything I want to do yet, I haven't become the person I want to be yet. And that was really huge at the beginning, and different people reacted in different ways. And some people were just like, yay, 2-week holiday, because at first it was just like a 2-week thing. And other people were like, oh my god, like, I'm going to kill myself. I can't not go out for 2 weeks. I can't deal with this. I can't not be at work. How am I going to, pay my bills? How am I going to live? How am I going to eat? And, different people, depending on their situation, circumstances, and depending on their, emotional landscape, did better or worse in that situation. And then we all evolved, and we all adapted, and we all grew, and we're all different people to who we were in that first instance. But we're all very, very different from each other still. We've all had different experiences, different learnings, and we've travelled through it, and we've kind of got comfortable. And as time has gone on, as it's like, where I am right now, it's kind of, we are almost 8 weeks now. And so up to 7 weeks it was very rigid and nothing changed, and if anything it got stricter rather than less strict as that time went on, and we got into a way of acting and behaving and thinking and feeling, and it was really fear-based. And every time that we checked in with the news, whatever our sources were, it was also really fear-based, and it was all about how many people were sick and how many people were dying and how fast this damn curve was rising, and how overly full and understaffed and under-equipped all the hospitals were, and how kind of like stressed and freaked out and worried and depressed all of these people that were in the front line dealing with these things and helping us to be safe and stay okay were, as a result of what they were going through, the deep trauma that they were facing. And all various different stories came out about, stories about how people were being murdered in hospitals because of improper treatment, how some people were being neglected and left to die because they were, of a different age, of the wrong age, and they were considered, that they were less likely to survive, so attention was going more to the younger or the fitter and healthier, or the people that were considered more valuable. And there's lots of stories out there about kind of mistreatment and malpractice, and stories also about break-ins and stuff in people's houses, and about people with no food and queuing for food and all of this like horrible stuff has gone on as a result of this like lockdown and pandemic. And it's very hard to kind of know what actually happened and what didn't, what's actually true and what's not, how to think and feel, and who to trust and have confidence in, and what direction we even want to be putting our attention on for the future. It's like, do we want the solution to be, yes, please inject me with a vaccine, or do we want the solution to be, no, I'm fine, thanks, I trust my immune system, I'll opt for herd immunity, and trust that if I do get sick, I can take the necessary vitamins, minerals, supplements, or whatever to navigate my way through this. How do we feel? How do we want to be in the future? Do we want to be in lockdown for months and months and months, having our borders shut and not being able to travel, or do we want things to go back to normal sooner and trust that this thing will pass, and that we'll be okay, because we as human beings have been okay for years and years and years and years and years. And it's hard to know how to feel, because it's like, well, yes, humans have been okay for years and years and years, but is this thing a natural virus, or is it a meddled with virus? Yeah, is it like man-made? Is it genetically engineered? It's like, because that changes it really, doesn't it? It's like, if it's natural, then fine, sure, yes, we can have confidence that we'll be okay because we've been okay before. But if it's not, if it's been like concocted in a factory, in a lab, then, well, we might not be, because we're meddling with something that we have no business meddling with, and we're not God, and God didn't create it, and therefore who knows what it might do. And then in the past, when we've dealt with stuff, maybe the world wasn't as polluted, maybe, you know, we weren't all breathing in toxic chemicals every day, and like maybe our bodies weren't full of heavy metals and horrible chemicals. Maybe we weren't eating diets that were like full of pesticides and other unhealthy things. You know, maybe we were healthier beforehand, and therefore we were able to deal with these things. So it's really hard to know how to feel right now, and what to have confidence in. And as things go back to normal, slowly but surely, I personally find myself in a really weird position where I don't know what I believe or think. I don't know where I stand in the whole thing, and therefore I don't know who I am when I leave my building. Like, I don't know if I'm the person that needs to be wearing that mask because otherwise I don't feel safe, and the person that is scared of everybody else and can't go near them for fear of like catching a virus and then maybe getting really sick and maybe not surviving. Am I that person? Or am I the person who feels safe and grounded and trusts their body and their immune system, and also trusts that, you know, this thing has kind of burned itself out for the most part, and therefore it's safe out there, and hey, because the streets are being disinfected every night and there aren't as many people around because the borders are shut, so, you know, there are only a fraction of the people here who are normally here because there are no foreigners here right now, there are no tourists. It's a safer world than it was before the quarantine, so therefore I can walk around with less worries than I had before. I don't know who I am. I'm torn between those two people. Yeah, I am both of those people. I am the person who wants to go outside and go to the beach and dive in the sea, or the person who wants to see if I can find somewhere that is shut but has an outside pool and go and just borrow their pool. I'm that person, and I would rejoice in being that person and feel empowered by being that person and get such a high from being that person. But I'm also the person that's so fearful that I don't even know if I can make it to the end of my street. I don't know if I'm ready to go into a shop. I don't know how to be anymore, because I doubted my immune system before all of this, and so now I have even more insecurities about that. And so not being able to reconcile those two parts of myself, I have not been out. And I hesitate because I'm being really, really honest here, and that feels really vulnerable. Because I feel like I'm not walking my talk. I have things like beliefs in my head about this whole situation from all of the study I've done around it. You know, I've done a lot of studying around this situation, not the mainstream media at all, or other sources. And I've listened to a lot of people talk about it and analyze the situation, and, you know, kind of scientists and specialists and you know, people from the center of the whole thing, who are kind of like speaking out and whistleblowing against it. And so I have all of this like kind of sensible, sane information in my head. And yet the news spin from the mainstream media was so powerful and so scary, and tapped into my core insecurities and fears, and traveled me right back into certain TV series and movies that I've watched in the past that freaked me out completely, and it brought them all to life, that I find myself paralyzed because I don't know which reality to trust. And so I feel like it's like one of them is a dream and one of them is a nightmare, and neither one of them are entirely real. And so I tried to, and I haven't been outside throughout this whole period of time, because at the very beginning I injured myself and I was unable to walk as a result of that injury, and that injury was on both feet, and I did it through trying to exercise inside, and we weren't allowed to go to the hospitals at that point. We were told we had to stay at home and deal with stuff ourselves, unless it was like kind of, you know, life and death. And I was like, well, okay, even if I've broken both my feet, that's not life and death. So I couldn't get it sorted out, so I had to just deal with it myself, and I did. But it took all of that time to heal, and it's still healing. So like I still have pain when I walk, but at least I can walk now. Yeah, so I could go for a short walk, I think. I'm not sure, I haven't tested it, but it's like that gave me, you know, that stopped me. It made it impossible for me to go out even if I'd wanted to, because we were allowed to like take our dog out throughout this period for a walk. Yeah, for like a 5-minute walk or whatever, each day, just to allow them to do their business. And so I could have gone out for that purpose, and I think I probably would have, because I like was not okay with the idea of not leaving my apartment for 2 weeks at the very beginning of it. That thought really scared me, and so I would have gone out. But yet this injury happened to me, and it made it impossible for me to go out. And I took that as, because I am spiritual and I believe in signs and things happening for a reason, I took that as a really big sign from the universe that I was to shelter in place and not go out, and to take this seriously and not be irresponsible. And so I didn't go out, and I haven't been out, and I kind of, I guess I was almost, once I got over the disappointment and the frustration of that, and the annoyance of it and everything, then I was kind of thankful in a way, and it made me be extra caring towards myself, and to think outside the box in terms of how I could stay active and stay healthy and heal my feet while not further injuring them, and kind of balancing that mixture between like self-nurture and self-punishment, really, and like, you know, the exercising to care for the body, not exercising and then ending up injuring the body just because you have to get you down 10,000 steps in a day. And so it's only really from a couple of days ago when they basically said it's now okay for us all to go out for a walk each day. Yeah, like everybody's allowed to go out for a walk each day. You're allowed to go out once a day for like 2-3 hours if you want, as long as you don't go more than 1 kilometre away from your house. And you're allowed to go out to exercise once a day for 1 hour and I think you're allowed to go further in order to exercise, like, I guess because if you're on a bike or something, it's going to be a bit boring if you're just going 1 kilometre for an hour. But that has to be done alone, and there are kind of like rules around that as well, so it's not just like a free-for-all and you can't do everything that you might want to do, but you know, the flexibility is there, and you can go out, I think, any time of the day to do the sporting thing, but the exercise, if you want to just go for a stroll, there are set times for that. So I kind of felt like, oh, okay, that's cool. Well, you know, I'll go out, and hey, I should probably go out sooner rather than later, because the longer I don't go out for, the more chance I have of becoming a bit agoraphobic, really, developing an issue about this thing that I didn't have before. And so yesterday I tried to go out, and the day before I decided, right, I want to go out. I was looking at people outside the window, and I was feeling like I was missing out, and I really wanted to be a part of it. And as the weather has changed, I really just wanted to get outside and get some fresh air. But I kept waiting until we got given the okay, the all clear, and you know, we got given permission, because I didn't want to get stopped by the police or told off or fined or anything, because they are out there prowling and patrolling, and they're really serious about this. And so though yesterday, but the day before, I kind of like, I got ready to go out, and then I changed my mind at the last minute. And then yesterday I actually got ready to go out and went out, and I got to downstairs, the front door to my building, and stepped out, and it was quite busy, and that freaked me out, because I kind of wanted it to be peaceful and empty and silent for me the first time around, just so I could put a tiny little toe in and take a baby step. And I crossed the street, and I kind of got stuck, because there was nowhere I could go. There were lots of different directions available to me. Like, I literally had about 6 different directions based on the way that the street's made up that I could go, but each one had people down it. And there was, I couldn't get anywhere without people, and I kind of needed silence and stillness and space to get my grounding first. You know, I've come from 5 floors up, and I haven't been on the ground for like weeks, and I needed to get my grounding first and to refamiliarize myself with the street and the earth, before I had to deal with anything else. And it was like, suddenly I was like in the city, and there were people everywhere, and there were cars, and it was nothing like what it's normally like here. You know, like normally there's like a constant flow of cars, and there were lots of people, and it wasn't like that at all. But compared to what it has been, which is empty the whole time and silent, it was a real contrast. And as a sensitive person, like, I've really gotten used to the quiet and the stillness and the peace, and having my windows open the whole time and not being disturbed, and being able to sleep through the night without being woken up by anything. And now noise is coming back, and I'm finding it really difficult and really disturbing, and my nervous system is like unable to deal with that, because it's so open and wide. It's almost like, you know, I guess the whole pandemic thing just like blew me wide open, because it was such a deep trauma. And then I was like all open, and that was a beautiful opportunity for healing and self-love and growth, and I embraced it, and I settled into it, and I started to like and trust this like quiet, still environment with no people in it, that wasn't like constantly provoking my nervous system. And I relaxed. But then when the noise started coming back, I was all open, and I had no boundary, no shield. And so it started like triggering me again, but more than it really should have been. And going out and trying to go for a walk yesterday was like really triggering. And I had to come back home. Like, I was so, like, I literally just had to turn around within like about a minute or 2 minutes at the most and come back home, and I got back into my apartment, and I was really upset. Like, really, I felt like I'd failed massively. I felt really pathetic and really weak and really like, oh my God, I'm so inauthentic. It's like, you know, it's like I kind of like, I say all these things inside, and I feel all of this ways like while I'm inside my safe apartment, and I'm feeling strong and powerful, and I'm feeling like I've kind of like healed a load of stuff. And then when I go and try and test it in the world, I don't feel like anything's changed, and I feel like worse than before this all happened, because God, now I'm like weak and vulnerable, and I have no independence because I can't even leave my building, and I need help with that and someone to protect me, and I've kind of lost my confidence, is in terms of security within self, which really shocks me, because I've been doing so much strength work inside, while I've been inside, while I haven't been able to go outside. I've been doing loads of yoga and dance and strength training and stuff, which is all new to me. And so I was feeling really empowered, and then I tested it, and I felt like I hadn't achieved anything at all because it didn't stand up, and it really threw me. And so when I got back inside, I was really upset, and I was obviously like traumatized by the experience, because I flared up in this angry red heat rash thing all over my back, and it took me the rest of the day to calm down and feel okay. And I feel okay now, and I feel like I'm ready to try again, but I feel like I've got a lot of conflicting stuff going on in my head, and I really bought into the fear. And even though, I guess it's like when you watch an advert, like we all know adverts are really manipulative, and they prey on our weakness, and they make us feel like I remember when I was 24, and I was watching TV, and it was a skincare advert for Garnier, I think, and Natalie Imbruglia was on it, and she was like the lead the actress, the main person in it, as the spokesperson. She was 29, and she was talking about using this facial cream, and it was an anti-wrinkle cream, and she was talking about how she needed this cream because she was developing wrinkles, and how, you know, you should be, you know, essentially using anti-wrinkle cream from your like late 20s onwards. And I hadn't even thought about wrinkles or aging or anything at that time, and I thought that, you know, I didn't really care much about like skincare creams at that point. It was like, I just, you know, was quite happy to use whatever basic thing I could get in the pharmacy. It wasn't something that was important to me. And then that seed was in my head, and from that point onwards I started worrying about aging and wrinkles and what I put on my face. And I didn't invite that information in. That information was forced upon me as a result of my watching television. So I guess you could argue by choosing to watch television I invited the information in, but I didn't. I was like choosing to watch a program on television, and the adverts were like shoved in between this program, and they were forced on me. I didn't choose them. I didn't like look up in the TV guide and go, oh yes, I would like to watch that advert today, please. And so I think this whole situation right now is, for me, a bit like those adverts. It's like I didn't choose to have that information forced on me. I didn't invite it in. I was almost oblivious to it before this happened, and I was happy in my oblivion. I did not follow the news or anything really like before this. For many years I've like gone, no, I don't want it, it doesn't work for me, I don't believe in it, it's not positive, it's not helpful, and then it was forced on me in this situation, and I couldn't escape. It was unavoidable because the news was being played out outside my window on the streets. Yeah, it wasn't just an advert on, you know, on TV. It wasn't just a news report on television, and it wasn't like an article in a newspaper. It was like my whole Instagram feed was full of it. My Facebook feed was full of it. You know, every time I went on YouTube, it was like full of it there too. Before I could even get to anything, it was being forced on me. You know, even though I wasn't actually watching the television or reading the newspapers, it was still finding its way into my life without my giving it permission or choosing for it to be there. And then I would look out of the window and I would see it being played out outside, because, you know, you've got the people in their kind of like protective clothing, like hazmat suits, walking down the streets with the spray disinfecting it at, like, you know, in the middle of the night. So it just feels really eerie and really like they're trying to do it while we're not watching, so we don't know. And then I'm like, why? You know, why are they trying to hide? Why can't they do it during the daytime? And like police cars just like kind of cruising down the streets throughout the whole night when there's no one out there, and that freaks you out because it makes you feel really trapped. It's like I can't even disobey the rules if I choose to. You know, if I'm brave enough to do it, if I'm arrogant enough to do it, if I'm, I don't know, stupid enough to do it, whatever, you know, whatever word you choose to apply to that. It's like you can't, even if you want to, because you're going to get caught and found out the minute you try. And that's all gone into my mind, and it's all become a part of my cells, and like it really deeply affected me. I was really traumatized by the whole thing at the beginning. Like I had nightmares every single night, at least one, if not more, about COVID for at least the first month. And then it's kind of like it's stopped now, and it probably stopped a couple of weeks ago, and I don't think I've had one since. And I think, like, I've had dreams that don't contain it in since, whereas before, any dream I had that wasn't a nightmare was all about it as well, but in a less threatening way. And so kind of letting it go and going back to normal is challenging. It's difficult because it's like, you taught me so well, and I was a really good student, and I learned what to do and how to behave, and I changed a lot of behaviours and became a lot more careful and cleaned like a maniac, and, you know, all of that stuff, took all of the precautions, started taking loads of different supplements and everything for protection, and now I don't know how to unhook the little claws of fear from my body and release them, that little creature, back into the ether. I don't know how to forget it, make peace with it, resolve it, how to kind of like move on to the next chapter of this. I'm stuck in the chapter 1, and I know that probably says a lot about me as a person, like that I find it hard to let stuff go anyway, because I'm really sensitive, and stuff gets in and it gets in and it goes really, really deep. And I think about stuff really deeply, and I analyse stuff a lot, and I like to have answers, and I like things to be clear and black and white in a way. It's like yes or no, right or wrong. I don't like the in-between, middle, muddy place. It doesn't work for me. I have to know why things are the way they are. You when it comes to learning things, I can't just learn a new word in a different language. I have to, and different verbs and putting sentences together, for example, in French or Spanish. I can't just learn that, parrot it back. I have to understand the whole sentence structure and the reason for it and the way the verbs and the tenses work. And I think this is similar. It's because nobody can give me a straight answer, everybody has got their own opinion on this, and depending on who you listen to and where you go for your information, you can find whatever answer you want. And that's difficult for me because I don't, trust my own feelings about this whole thing, my own intuition. I don't trust it enough to move forwards, because I guess my thoughts about the whole thing in the beginning and my feeling about it at the very beginning before the quarantine happened, so kind of January, February, was, oh, it's all a load of fuss, and it's being overblown and the media are blowing it out of proportion, and it's nothing to worry about and it'll be okay, and it's just, a bad flu thing that will move through, but it's not going to destroy the whole world, and it's nothing to stop living for and because of. So it was all for carrying on as normal, and hey, if you get it, you get it and you'll be fine type of attitude. But that's when it wasn't really real. It was when I'd only kind of heard little snippets about it from people in my life, and then I would silence them fairly quickly and say, don't tell me, I don't want to know, I don't want to be scared, I don't need that information in my head, I'd rather be ignorant to it. And then it kind of happened in such a big way, and I thought, shit, I got it so wrong. I thought it was nothing. And I remember the day before it happened, I was walking with my partner and somebody was coughing in the street ahead of us, and he grabbed me, pulled me back the other way, and went charging back down the street in the opposite direction and wouldn't walk past this person, whereas I was just gonna hold my breath and walk past them and walk quickly past them, not loiter. But I didn't feel like I had to be afraid. I just felt a bit yeah. And then it was it turned out that his reaction was the right reaction and my reaction was the wrong reaction, and I was being too kind of laid back about the whole thing, and he was right to be worried. And I was like, shit, I got it wrong. I got it so wrong. And so I apologized to him, and then we ended up in quarantine and everything. And now I'm I feel so disconnected from the world that I don't know if it's safe to go out there or not yet. And I don't know if they know if it's safe to go out there or not yet. Or is it just an experiment to wait and see what happens? And do I want to be part of that experiment to wait and see what happens? Because do I want to be collateral damage? And so I guess the easiest thing, considering what happened yesterday when I tried to go outside, feels like just to sit and wait and maybe give it a week or so and see what happens. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with doing that at all. I'm not in a rush to get back out there. It would be nice to get some sun and fresh air. I've never been this pale and pasty at this time of the year in this country before. Normally I'm nicely brown by now. But normally it's non-existent, and it doesn't really matter anymore what we look like. We've kind of forgotten about that now, haven't we? And we're just whatever, and we kind of stay in our pajamas all day if we want to, and there's no point in kind of putting makeup on and dressing up to go out because we're not going anywhere. And that's all quite nice and relaxing, really. Quite nice not to have that to stress about. but I feel inauthentic because I feel like I'm growing as a person while I'm inside with the things that I am doing and learning and reading, and then it feels strange to not go and test them in the world and to be reluctant to do that. And so I don't really know like how to conclude this, because I don't really know what I think or what I feel. I'm totally and utterly confused at the moment. I'm a bit scrambled. I'm like a computer that has crashed and going like, will of death, I don't know what tomorrow will bring, how I will feel, how I will act, whether I will choose to test the waters again or not. I don't know, and I guess I just wanted to share my feelings and my thoughts, and to say that, you know, like, this is my experience, and it has been a challenging one, and I have struggled, and I have had a lot to deal with during this quarantine that has come up to be aired and given space to and held and loved. And I'm trying to walk my talk in all of the ways that I can, and I feel like I am doing a pretty good job of that, but I also feel like I'm failing completely, and I'm split in that respect, and it's difficult, and I just wanted to be honest about that, and I wanted to share it because I think so often we have to pretend to be someone who we're not, and we have to pretend to be fixed and sorted and happy and healthy and successful and all of those things. We have to like kind of put across this persona of who we are to the world in order to be lovable and acceptable and useful and all of that crap. And it's not who I am. I'm not that person at all. I am so not like that. I hate that the falseness of it, and you know, like, so if I ask someone, hey, how are you, like, I really want to know how they are. I don't want them to say fine thanks and you, or just fine thanks. I don't, that doesn't interest me. That's just so superficial and pointless, and it's like, don't waste your breath, and don't waste my breath on a pointless interaction. I'd rather you didn't ask me, or you just waved and said hello, but like, don't say how are you if you don't really want to know. But I struggle because most people don't want to know when they ask that question, how are you? They don't want to know how you are. They just want you to say, oh, I'm great, thanks. And I struggle with that, and I get criticised by people in my life for speaking my truth in a situation like that, and for always asking people how they feel back and waiting to hear their answer. And I get criticised for getting hurt when people don't want to hear my answer by people in my life. And that's tough. But anyway, I wanted to remain authentic to myself, and that means sharing my truth. And my truth is that I'm just as messy as you, that I have my challenges just like you do, and that this whole experience of this, like, you know, Corona time, COVID time, has really been difficult for me. It's been beautiful, and it's gifted me a lot, but it's also been really challenging. You know, there's stuff that's come up in my relationships and in my personal life, and to do with my health and my fitness. That's really pushed me big time in directions that I don't want to go. And I felt really trapped in some situations too, like not able to act act in the way that I would do ordinarily, having to just put up with things and go along with it all and everything. So this is like a rather long-winded kind of monologue, really, about a minor point, which is that everything is changing, and my wanting to ask you, how is that for you? How are you feeling? How are you coping with it? But I guess I wanted to give my long-winded kind of like confession of how it is for me, so that you maybe feel more able to own how it is for you. Yeah, it's like if I own my truth, and my truth is messy and mucky and dirty and smelly and all of that, and I'm still loving myself, and I'm still okay with that, and I'm still holding space for myself and walking my path, and I'm still okay enough to own it and to put it out there to you, I really hope that that encourages you to feel strong enough and good enough and lovable enough to do that for you, because it's okay to feel how you're feeling. It's okay to struggle, to have challenges. It's okay to not be perfect. Don't feel like that you have to be a certain way in this situation, and that if you don't, you failed, or you're a bad person, or don't accept any of that crap. It's crap. It's utter crap. And if people are making you feel like that, and people are saying that to you, then that's crap, and that's their crap, not your crap. So yeah, I guess I just like, if I can give you anything here right now in this space, it's like I really hope I can give you the permission to honor yourself and everything that you are feeling and every way that you are acting, and be okay with it and love it. Yeah, don't reject it. Love and accept it exactly how it is. And if you think it would be helpful to share that with me and have me hold space for you, then I would be honored to do that for you. And I promise that I will do that in a loving, motherly way, because that really is the biggest gift that we can give to each other and to ourselves, is to be present and to hold space and to listen without judging, without criticizing, without condemning anyone or any part of ourselves, without buying into the bullshit about how we have to be and act and think and feel in order to be deemed worthy and valuable and likable and lovable by society. And it's not real, it's not true, that's not why we're here. We're here to have a grand adventure and to learn and to grow, so that we can go back changed to where we came from. So I send you all my love, and I urge you to be courageous and hold space for yourself. And I thank you very, very, very much if you've got this far and you're still listening, because this ended up being quite a long monologue in the end. So, bye.